student of Diligent Bilingual in Cameroon, Bileng. I've learned here that there are many forms of sexual violence and people are even violated sexually and they don't know it. So we were trained here as junior activists in the fight against sexual violence on women, and that the fight against this ill is far from over, but we are joining the fight to say no to sexual violence, no to any form of violence against women, whether it be obscene publications or even comments, and that it is punishable by law. And many causes why the fight against sexual violence is far from being over is shame, stigma. People are afraid to talk. But we, as we have been trained here, we are going to go out into the communities and talk to people and counsel them so that they will not be afraid to come and report any cases of sexual violence.
Thank you very much.
In the conclusion of my presentation, being a victim of sexual violence is never a choice. Nobody writes an advertisement or sends an invitation, come and rape me. The fact that it is violence means it happened against the will of the victim and has actually injured the victim. So being a victim of sexual violence is not a choice. Nobody chooses to. But where we can make a choice is to have a concerted effort to make sure that that victim becomes a survivor. And this is where everybody comes in. The neighbors who saw it, the good Samaritan who was passing on the way, who can help the victim, the police, the gendarme, all the law enforcement workers, the social workers, the medical doctors who may be called upon to do a medical exam, the courts, the Ministry of Women's Empowerment, civil society, NGOs, all of us, we have a duty to help those victims become survivors. And they can only become survivors if they get closure. That means if they get some form of justice or healing. And that comes from us letting them know it is not their fault. It was the fault of the perpetrator. And we help to rehabilitate those victims and, bring them back, to normal so that tomorrow they will not only be survivors, but they will help other people. Let's break the silence together. It is not the fault of the victim.
In an attempt in breaking the silence, might we not get to a situation where it's like we are waging war against men in society?
It's not only women who are sexually violated by men. Women can be sexually violated by women, and men can be sexually violated by men. And when I was talking about Section 346 of the Penal Code, a very young boy could be sexually violated by an older woman. This thing is not a woman-man thing. It is the society picking up these vulnerable victims and helping them to get closure.
Actually, the fight against sexual violence continues. It continues because many women are still suffering, and many men and women are still perpetrators. That's why it's continuing. What's the message? The simple message is that it has to stop. Nobody wants to be violated against, so you don't violate another person. And whoever does it and you notice it, it's your responsibility as a responsible citizen to report it so that the perpetrator is brought to book.
Yeah, you are noted to be of a very strong religious movement, and in the course of the deliberations, they highlighted an issue of ritual rape that could equally involve some men of God and whatnot. How do you think this thing can be stopped within the circles of the church?
Ritual rape within the circles of the church, actually, it's not that rampant. To my understanding, it's not that rampant, but even if it's one case out of 1 billion, it is still as bad as it is. And I'm calling on all the clergy, priests, pastors, and all that are involved in religious activities to understand that it is a crime to take advantage of somebody that is that comes to you and trusts you at that level. To take advantage of them sexually, it is a crime, and like the Lady Justice said, it is punishable for up to about 25 years imprisonment. So it's worth noting.
Madam, what do you think is the greatest challenge in the fight against the violence against women?
The greatest challenge in the fight against violence against women, in my opinion, I would say it's the silence about it, the silence on it. Those who are victimized, they don't want to talk. And because they don't want to talk, it remains in the shadows. It's as if nothing is happening. If they begin to speak, the perpetrators will be brought to book. And when they are brought to book, they'll be punished. And when they are punished, others will learn. So the silence about it is the biggest hindrance, in my opinion.
Salud, Mami, tell me your name and tell me which you don't learn after this meeting today.
Okay, my name is Atabi Esther. I come from Manhattan, Kumba 3. So we don't come for inside this one, we don't come today. We don't come for we don't come lecture about women them. How a woman them, they go for doctrine their children, their woman picking and their man picking. For how women not begin to do some kind of activity they correct. If the one begin to dress their skin with a dress, they know how to dress, they know how to wear their correct clothes. And if the one to say, the one for make a lesson way, they want to make a they know what they figure for one. I mean, man be not to the big go for so they be raped. Their own man, they marry them for their own self. I mean, not to say, picking or go be wears or kind of the ways of they put on a lasso and they go for the kind of way. So it don't can't think them, can't load them with them inside a book where the way Matangasaran talk about Magistrate Gasaran talk for we don't lecture we plenty for here.
Thank you, man.
I'm the Executive Director of the Organization for Gender, Civic Engagement and Youth Development. This campaign, which is Break the Chain on sexual violence on women, it's a campaign that was initiated with a goal of sensitizing men, women, and youth on the ills, the remedies, and the infrastructures that are standing to help victims of sexual violence. We also wanted to highlight through this project that sexual violence is punishable by the law. We also realized before we initiated this project that most people have been violated, most women have been violated, but because of ignorance, they didn't even know that it was a sexual violence, that they had been through. So this project is aiming at creating awareness as well as making perpetrators know that violence against women is punishable by law. We actually decided to get the youth, the men involved, because most of the sensitization that we know with women when it comes to violence has always just brought the women together, tell them that it's something that is punishable by law, and they go home and they are still violated by the men. So we realized that this discussion shouldn't only have the women, but we should get the men involved, since most often they are the perpetrators. We won't say here that men are not also violated. Yes, they are violated, but a good majority of the violated victims are the women. So that's why we decided to target more the violence on women. So we are talking to the men because we realize that if we need to create this balance, if we need to make this partnership work, we need to get the men involved. So that is why we decided to target bike riders and taxi drivers unions in all the towns that we visited. That is, we have been through Boya, we have been to Mbanga, and now we are in Kumba, and in the days ahead we are going to be in Loom for the same sensitization. Now we are targeting these bike riders because we know that it's in this group that we have a lot of uneducated people who easily perpetrate the violence on their women. And also not just that, they are the ones who actually also are involved in the cases of rape, because they do carry school students on their bikes or in their cars, and we have had stories of victims, from this target group. So that's why we decided to target them, to make them understand that it's something that is punishable by the law. Now, we also got the youths, because most of these youths don't know their rights. Some of them are being raped in the process, whether it's a boy or a girl. We need to sensitize them on the different forms of sexual violence that is punishable by the law, so they will know that if at all there's a case of sexual harassment, there's a case of rape or intention to, they would be able to report these cases. And also we know that young people, they already emulate a lot from their parents. If a boy who grows up seeing the father beating the mother all the time will know that for me to live in my home, if my wife talks to me in future, I need to beat her up. I have a friend who is still going through that now because he said, I copied this from my father. I saw him doing it and there's no way I can get out of it. And also with the young girls, they will know that, okay, my mother was beating all the time. Maybe this is the way of showing love. So if their husband is beating them in future, they will just be there. They will say, this is love. This is how a marriage is supposed to be, with the beatings and all of that. So that is why you see us coming out to this different target group, and we decided we chose Kumba because Kumba is a town where in the past, Kumba right now I think it's more calm. It's a town where law and order is being respected, but we chose it because maybe in an education of such has not really been done in Kumba before. When it comes to sexual violence, maybe other forms of violence, they have had trainings on it, but really trying to go in depth on sexual violence, we realize that in all these towns that we choose, we have never really had a sensitization program running.
Now, as a civil society organization, you've been through this training workshops. Okay,
as we have, in the course of this campaign, we have been having people who have talked maybe of relatives or victims that in a way they have made their stories known to us. We have a bank right now of institutions and individuals who are ready to prosecute perpetrators of violence. Most of these people who have these victims who have reported cases, we have, for example, our main resource person here, Justice Ngasa, who is ready to listen to any person that has been violated and take the necessary measures to make sure that the person is prosecuted. We have the delegations of women's affairs. We have the delegations of social affairs. We have even the delegation of social secondary education, who are all coming out to give us their support, and they are ready to stand against this issue of sexual violence, whether it's in school, whether it's with the women, or whether it's with the men. They are ready to stand and they are ready to bring the perpetrators to book.
How many people are you targeting in this campaign?
We are targeting a total of 2,400 people. That is men, women, and youth.
So this far, how many have you reached?
This far, I think we have gotten, we have reached out to close to 2,000 people already through our sensitization that we have been carrying out since the 4th of December.
So what are you expecting from these people you have?
Communities, they will go back to their groups, they will go back to their peers, they will go back to their school, and they will pass the same message to. Together, let's say no to sexual violence. No to sexual violence.